Rydaf shouted in surprise. Can they really live here? They are just looking for a place to settle down. Wolf agreed and added that their blacksmithing skills would be useful to their city. He was sure that Mr. Sakai was not against it either. He agreed with a smile, saying of course, if they were ready to stay with them. Rydaf took the mug, thanked them, and sadly noted that they drank their alcohol without asking, and they were so kind to them. That's it was decided. They will live in this city. MC handed him some food and said, let him have this as a snack. This is the fruit of the world tree, a gift from him personally. He took it and replied, if he doesn't mind. The protagonist thought about how 15 dwarves joined them. With the appearance of their tools, all the work in the city became easier. Everyone was happy with their settlement, only now they needed to increase alcohol production. After a while, Ella shouted that the defense of their city was limping. MC replied that they had some good warriors. The werewolves and goblins were impressive in combat, plus they had orcs. Does that still bother her? She exclaimed in displeasure that dwarves had managed to sneak in. Doesn't that prove otherwise? He was the world tree of this world. Scoundrels would definitely target him. The previous world tree had always clashed with them. Many people would want to use his power. To protect him from all sorts of scoundrels, they needed to improve their defenses. The protagonist wondered, but how could they do that? Ella shouted that they would make golems. A golem is a monster made of stone. They are almost a living legend now. There are so few of them that they are only found in old ruins. There are very few of them left in this world, and no one knows how to create new golems. MC agreed, saying of course, one golem is worth 100 soldiers. Does she know how to create them? Ella agreed and added that the elves knew the traditions from ancient times, and she knew the method of creating golems. Thanks to her instructions, anyone could easily create a golem. The protagonist happily said that it was great. He suggested that they try. After a while, the creation began, and he thought that first, they asked the locals to collect materials for the golems. Before breathing life into it, it needed to be shaped. A large stone would serve as the foundation. Using his abilities, he created several stones for the base of the body. Goblins and orcs assembled golems from them. After assembly, they were glued together with clay. Then it was necessary to carve magic circles on the stones. The elves did an excellent job of this. After that, it was necessary to invest a part of it. He invested the fruits of the world tree. When they finished building the golem, Ella began to use the ability, ordering the golem to rise. Suddenly, a huge pile of stones began to move and stand up. MC noted in surprise that this was an impressive sight. With golems, their city would be safe. Ella said with a smile that now they can sleep peacefully. Wolf happily shouted that they will take one with them on a hunt. With golems, they have become much stronger. After a while, the protagonist thought that they created 3 golems that day. They are undead creatures, so they never get tired. They never complain and can guard the city even at night. Now they are safe. The protagonist cut an apple into a cup. Then he began to enjoy this fruit with pleasure. He thought that the fruits growing on the world tree provoked evolution in everyone who ate these fruits. Of course, he would like to know the real name of this fruit, but it was not so important. After eating, he went to the city. On the way, he also thought about these magical fruits. The protagonist also tried to give the fruits of evolution to the elves. Their ears became longer. According to them, they have now become high elves, and the amount of magic power they have increased. And the dwarves, when they ate the fruits, evolved into elder dwarves. They grew taller, which made them very happy. Rydaf was especially happy. He began to look even more brutal and solid. The orcs evolved into great orcs. They became even larger and taller, resembling a real rock in appearance. In order for lower creatures like slime to evolve, you need to eat several fruits of evolution. For example, after eating this fruit, an ordinary slime will turn into a large one, and then into a slime king, then into a slime girl, and the next fruits already change the body. But when it comes to advanced races, for example elves, then, having eaten the fruit of evolution, they become superior, and this is the end point. And if you feed the goblins, they have several stages of evolution. In any case, you can stop here for now. Perhaps the next step can also be achieved, but you need significantly more fruits. On the way, he met Benjamin, who greeted him. The protagonist greeted him back and walked on, lost in his thoughts. Ella watched him in surprise, but he didn't notice. He was surrounded by children. MC mechanically patted their heads, and they followed him. He walked and continued to think. It was too reckless to try to evolve so quickly. The more species evolve, the more it affects the ecosystem. Besides, not every changed monster can be friendly. It was necessary to avoid a repeat of the situation with the Eldritch cultists. Therefore, he had to stop distributing the fruits left and right for now. He instructed the workers to take the collected fruits to the warehouse and store them there. They will be used only when necessary. Rydaf approached him and told him that they would like to create their own workshop. Sakai was not against it. The dwarf exclaimed that it was just great, and they would start right away. The dwarves decided to build their own workshop in the city. and he gave them his permission to do so. They erected their brainchild entirely, with their own efforts, in the blink of an eye, joyfully shouting that they had everything ready. In addition, they built their houses with their own efforts. Their workshop also became a place for creating weapons. In it, they did all their work. Reidaf invited the protagonist inside the workshop. He began to explain to him that here they were going to create various tools and weapons. He also expressed the hope that the protagonist would not be against them, making weapons for their warriors. Sakai enthusiastically supported the old man's idea. Reidaf said that he would like to figure it out as quickly as possible. And for this, they needed good material. His assistant replied that they had nothing else except wood. The old man thoughtfully patted his beard and said that only wood is a problem. The protagonist was puzzled that in order to create a good weapon, more serious materials are needed, but they have nothing like that. Then a great idea came to him. He took his branch, used his magical power of imagination, and the piece of wood turned into a good material. The protagonist handed it to the old man and asked him, "Can they use this?" Reidaf seemed to be able to deafen everyone with his scream because he exclaimed with admiration that this is a legendary material. It was Yggdrasil's steel. The protagonist was surprised. A legendary material? It was just his branch. With his growth, his branches became stronger, so he thought they could use them. Reidaf confidently stated that there was no doubt it was Yggdrasil's steel. He had seen it a long time ago. The protagonist asked him incredulously, "Is this really such a good material?" The old man answered him that it was simply amazing. Anything can be made from it. He shouted to his assistants to quickly bring their tools. They needed to get to work already. Reidaf threw the material into the coals, heated it red hot, and then placed it on the anvil. The work was in full swing in his hands, and finally the protagonist saw a sword of amazing beauty. The old man said that the weapon was ready. He asked the protagonist to put his magical power into the sword. Sakai was surprised. Him? Put magical power? The elder dwarf confirmed that this was so. He added that this sword did not yet have an owner. If he poured magical power into it, then this weapon would become the only holy sword in this world. The protagonist began to understand his words, but he did not know how to do this. Taking the sword in his hands, he brought it to his face, closed his eyes, and with the power of imagination, transferred a piece of himself to it. Suddenly, the sword shone with a bright light, blinding with its brilliance. Everyone present reacted with admiration to this action. But in addition, the weapon began to change its shape. The old man said with admiration that it was thanks to the magical power of the protagonist that the sword itself changed its shape. At any angle, it immediately becomes clear to everyone that this is definitely a holy sword. Reidaf suggested that the protagonist try swinging it. MC fulfilled his request. He was amazed to notice that this weapon seemed to be a part of him. It seemed to guess every movement of its owner in advance, gliding through the air easily and smoothly. The main character said that although it really was his branch, it was already part of his body from the very beginning. He exclaimed that they should try it. But on what? At that moment, they heard Rind scream that the demon bear was attacking their children. Let everyone be careful. The protagonist was even happy about this, just in time. He raised his sword, thought that the demon had come just in time, and shouted to his allies to leave this bear to him. The protagonist rushed to attack, thinking that this would be the perfect test for his sword. He fearlessly attacked the enemy. Ella screamed loudly with excitement for him. Sakai flew at the opponent and hit him with his sword. To everyone's surprise, the sword, like a laser, cut the monster in half, but the wave of the blow moved far forward, destroying the stone fence. After some time, when everyone present more or less recovered from the shock, the protagonist was able to express his admiration, like, "This is the power of his sword." Reidaf replied that it was not only this one's power, but the main character's too. He asked what name Sakai would give this. The protagonist was surprised. A name? After thinking for a while, he decided to call it the Holy Sword Yggdrasil. Reidaf was simply delighted with such a name, noting that it was perfect for such a weapon. And so MC received a single copy of the Holy Sword. After he saw what his new sword was capable of, he decided that it was better to refrain from mass-producing weapons from Yggdrasil steel. So, they made weapons from it for their warriors, but they refused to sell them to Mokoro and mass-produce them. Also, they decided to set a rule that they would only use this steel for their city. If they sent such weapons to the market, there would be too many consequences. Instead, they decided to make tools from this steel. Using it, they were able to create axes and hoes with amazing characteristics. Thanks to them, performing simple daily tasks became easier. Naturally, they also decided to keep it within the framework of their city. Speaking of the merchant, Mokoro recently sold their wine from the World Tree at a very high price, and this greatly affected the market. It began to be used instead of various potions, although the protagonist did not give much of it. But this was enough to take away the doctors' jobs. Their city's hospital was empty without patients. Some wards even had spider webs, and the doctors sighed sadly, longing for work. But if you need to heal people's pain, then there was nothing better than this drink. Therefore, the protagonist did almost nothing with the distribution of wine. But the fruit of evolution and Yggdrasil steel and other materials from it were very unique. Isekai, opening the chest with metal, thought that in the future they should be more careful with what they sold to the rest of the world. After some time, MC called Reidaf to him and voiced his idea to him. The old man was surprised. Is this true? The protagonist replied that it was so. This is his request to the master. Let him make 8 more holy swords from Yggdrasil steel. The elder dwarf thought about it, as many as 8 swords. The protagonist explained to him that he wanted to distribute them to the leaders of each faction. This way, they will achieve a balance of power within the city, and all the nations will be at peace. MC looked at the thoughtful Reidaf and asked him, will he take on this job? The old man in response lamented that using the Yggdrasil steel again and creating 8 holy swords seemed like the peak of his career had finally arrived. He promised the protagonist that he would give it his all. And so, MC asked the dwarves to make 8 more swords. When they were ready, the first one to receive his sword was the leader of the goblins, REINCARNATED. He gratefully accepted his sword and asked Isekai if he could give his sword a name. The protagonist agreed. He saw no problem with it. REINCARNATED then turned to his son, Ek, and told him to be the one to name the sword. His son was surprised by his father's decision and asked him in amazement, will he give the weapon a name? REINCARNATED said that one day he would become the leader of the goblins, and he would be the next owner of this weapon. Ek exclaimed that he understood his father and said that he would call this weapon the Holy Sword of Goblio. The son of the werewolf leader Jonas also poured magic power into his holy sword. He shouted that he would become the leader, that he would lead the clan of werewolves. And the name of this sword is Wolfang. The others also raised their swords. The Holy Sword of the Arachne people, Archnecreon, the Holy Sword of the Elves, Elma, the Holy Sword of Slime, Slimebringer, the Holy Sword of the Dwarves, Dwarfworm, the Holy Sword of People, Excalibur. MC thought that thanks to the 9 holy swords, their defense became even stronger, and they became a symbol of their alliance. Sometime later, already at night, Reidaf and his assistant were relaxing in the pool. He, sitting with a bottle of wine, said that this wine of the world tree was still so chic. They had made 9 holy swords, and there was no sign of fatigue, and the taste was simply excellent. The assistant agreed, saying that even his lower back had stopped hurting. Suddenly, Reidaf dropped the bottle right into the water and began to apologize in fear. He grinned and noted that he seemed to have drunk too much. Oh well, now it was a bathhouse with wine of the world tree. No one's back would hurt anymore. After some time, they left, but a dead man came up to the pool and climbed in, when suddenly there was a powerful explosion right in the water. He climbed out of there already as a human and asked in bewilderment, what just happened? Suddenly there was a loud scream and everyone woke up. The main character ran out into the street and excitedly asked what was going on. Ryan pointed his finger to the side and said that the scream was coming from the bathhouse. Everyone ran there and, already being there, saw strangers. Ryan asked who they were. One of them asked with a smile, like, are they the ones who live here? He doesn't know if they knew about it, but their hot spring is amazing. They were resurrected thanks to it. Another dead man plunged into the water and came out of the water as an ordinary person. He shouted in delight that his body was returning to him. How nice to be alive, MC asked in complete shock. Do they really resurrect? Ryan asked where they came from. One of them explained that they are the undead that have always lived in this forest. And then one day he found this spring, decided to climb into it, and was resurrected. The protagonist thoughtfully asked, but why did it give such a result? Reidaf bashfully answered that he accidentally spilled wine of the world tree there. He accidentally drank a lot and his hand trembled. MC thought that the wine of the world tree also returns the undead to normal. No matter how you look at it, this thing is too powerful. Besides, do they really become human? So what should they do with them? The stranger said with a smile that they were very grateful for this hot spring. Really? Would they let them stay in this city? They can do absolutely everything. The protagonist gave his consent and thought that just like that, 15 people had joined them. Undead can only be dead, and they are no longer dead, so they are not alive, right? Undead have an immortal body and cannot die. Becoming undead means that everything is over for a person. Even death becomes an unaffordable luxury. They only wander back and forth. But here, the undead were able to regain their body and resurrect. It is even hard to believe. In any case, now they have become humans again. Perhaps we should be happy for them. If the wine can also resurrect the dead. He tried pouring it on the corpse of an animal, but it did not come to life. It seems that the effect of the wine is limited to walking undead. Thank God, if it also brought the dead back to life, then that would be too much. Recently, the city's population has grown, and with it the speed of generating faith. What could he use it for? He would like to continue developing the city. It was possible to build more houses and improve the old goblin houses. From now on, with each influx of faith, he could build some buildings. Goblins' construction technologies are not yet fully developed. They cannot build large houses. At best, they can only build a small mansion. But to develop the city, they need larger buildings. They can build them with the help of faith. Now, when they gather for a council, they go to the mansion. But if the number of participants is noticeably larger, there will be no place for them there. After all, the city's population is growing. Some kind of community center is needed. After a while, they approached the World Tree. Rind asked if he would build here. MC agreed and began to say that he would try. He began construction and thought that there would be a council building in the center of the city. The size should be sufficient. It should accommodate many citizens. There should be a large table inside to hold meetings. Also, everything for a tea ceremony. Tea will come in handy. A moment later, the building was built. The protagonist noted that from now on, all meetings will be held here. They went inside, and Rin said in surprise that everyone will fit here. The protagonist noted that it needs some editing, a little correction. He replied with a smile, like, let him leave it to them. They will eat and immediately get to work. But it is better not to light a fire inside. Maybe they will eat outside? MC exclaimed that a canteen should be built. After a while, he thought that this is how the decision was made to open a canteen. You can eat there what the resident likes, and people will also come here to have fun. There is also a kitchen. Before the grand opening, it was decided to cook everything and a lot. The canteen also added jobs to their city. They got money from trading with Mokoro, so they are able to pay salaries. After a while, already in the canteen, Org, trying the food, noticed that it was too ordinary a stew, so something was missing. The stew that Gonzalez cooks is very nutritious, but it lacks taste. He shouted discontentedly, what's wrong with healthy eating? If he eats his vegetable stew every day, he will be a healthy goblin. MC, watching this, thought that it is of course delicious, but Org is right. In the canteen, they only have cheap and simple dishes. And sometimes, you want something interesting. After a while, he opened a restaurant where the food will be more expensive. The protagonist announced that there will be noticeably more types of dishes there. This is for those who want to eat gourmet food and spend a lot of money. Benjamin wondered who the chef would be. Suddenly, Catherine came to them and said that she had always wanted to be a chef. Now she would be working in a restaurant. She hoped that they would like her dishes. Benjamin shouted with delight that he would try it right away. Suddenly, Mimiko appeared and dragging him out of the room, said that he could eat at home. He liked her cooking. He excitedly shouted that she did not understand. He loved her. After some time, a wandering bard, Ciel, came to their town. He said that he loved to draw very much. And from the carriage he saw a huge tree. That's why he went into this forest. MC thought, as far as he could judge, the world tree was gigantic and could be seen from neighboring lands. It would not be surprising if those who wanted to see the tree would drop in. Well, they say that this forest is dangerous. Only the really strong can get to them. Ciel said that he would like to stay in their city for a while. Can he do this? The protagonist agreed. And for several days, the bard delighted everyone with his music and paintings. On the last day, Ciel thanked them and noted that he would never forget the time he spent here with them. Wolf said with a smile that he was a good person. The bard began to leave and shouted that he would definitely visit them again. MC thought that Ciel spent about a week in their city. He said that he had been to different cities. And then, a few months after he left the city, adventurers came to them. At the entrance to the city, Jonas asked who they were. The adventurers explained that they were one of those who learned about them from the bard Ciel. They were his friends who often drank with him. And one day he showed them his paintings and sang a song about their city. Then they were very interested in their city, so they are here. The protagonist said that if that was the case, then let them stay. He thought that a couple of adventurers came to them that day. After a while, they began to admire what a wonderful city it was. The hot springs were gorgeous, the girls were cute, the food was delicious. Jonas thanked them for their praise with a smile. Rind replied that they were good people too. They would be glad to see them again. One of the girls took out a chest and said, let them take this. The werewolf opened the chest and seeing many coins and a bone, was very surprised. The adventurers began to leave and said goodbye, that they had a lot of fun. Rind noted that they even thanked them. They really were good people. Later, MC thought that after that, news of their city spread even further, and new guests began to come to them, and then more guests. Everyone heard about them from Ciel. It seemed that his word was highly valued. He had seen his paintings and heard his songs. They were truly breathtaking. In addition, those adventurers and other guests talked about them even more. Word of mouth was in effect. Their city was becoming quite famous. There was practically no end to tourists. As expected, there was almost no place to accommodate them. After a while, the protagonist built a house for those who came to them from afar. He thought that in order for tourists to be able to shop in the city, he built a couple of shops. Previously, they only had shops for local residents. Of course, they had a small market, but now a full-fledged store was built. In addition, it was not an ordinary store. You could find everything there. In short, it was a full-fledged trading house. There was world tree wine, elven wine, goblin alcohol, dwarven weapons. All of this was sold in this place. In addition, they also did business with Makoro and sold him goods at wholesale prices. Tourists were also interested in souvenirs, various wooden figurines, etc. People who were previously undead turned out to be masters of ancient crafts. Many people began to come to the city. All the shops were packed with people. One day, Rein noted that today they could breathe a sigh of relief. What would he say about this? Maybe they could have a drink together? MC agreed, and in the evening they were sitting in a restaurant. The goblin noted that as soon as they finished work, there was nothing to do except drink. All that was left was to drink every day, if only there was something else. The protagonist thought that this was true. So far, only tourists were having fun. Their people also needed entertainment. Now there was almost nothing in their city except what Makoro brought them. For example, books. But they couldn't stop there. Their residents could die of boredom. The next day, the protagonist said that today was great weather and he had enough faith. And since it came to that, it was time to create entertainment. Due to the increase in the number of tourists, the strength of his faith increased significantly. The influence of the world tree on this city grew more and more every day. The tourists liked it. By the way, during this time he tried many things with his power. For example, after creating fertilizers, the protagonist tried to create even more of them, but he could not create something abstract like magic. Also, it was impossible for him to create, for example, a sword that could cut anything. Although in theory it was possible, but the amount of faith for this was simply gigantic. In addition, depending on the complexity of what he was creating, the amount of his faith also changed. This time the protagonist decided to create various entertainment for others. He created a board game. After finishing the creation, the protagonist exclaimed that he had everything ready and invited his friends. Ella looked at the game and asked him what it was. Sekai answered that she should sit down and play. She would understand everything right away. The elf thoughtfully said that everything was clear to her. It seemed that she had figured out the rules. She sat down at the table, saying that she would try. The protagonist supported her. After some time, Ella rejoiced. She won. For her in this game, everything was simple and interesting. The protagonist was depressed. He lost to the elf. He noted that usually beginners are lucky, and next time he will not hold back. They played a second game, and Ella won again. And the third victory again went to the elf. The protagonist was upset. He lost to the beginner again. Ella's friends praised her. Wow, 3 victories in a row. She is good. The leader of the elves exclaimed that it was amazing. This game turned out to be very interesting. MC noticed that this game pleased Ella. Then, for sure, the others will like it too. At that moment, Benjamin looked in on them and asked them what was going on here. Rind answered him that he did not understand anything either. Then Benjamin asked the protagonist to let him try it too. The protagonist languidly asked him what he wanted. Rind also expressed a desire to play. He noted that he had seen everything, and he already knew the rules of the game. The rest of the city residents came to the noise, and everyone wanted to try what Sekai had created. The protagonist urged them to attack him. This time he would show them all the top 3 players of the online tournament of Japan. Rind was the first to sit down at the table. After a while, he happily exclaimed that he had won. It was a pity to look at the protagonist. He had wilted. What do you think? He lost to Ella and goblins? Rind, seeing his disappointment, got scared, apologized to him, and asked him if he was not allowed to win. The protagonist replied that everything was fine. The most important thing was that they had fun. Thus, he lost to the rest of those who wanted to. At that moment, the children of his allies came to him. He asked them if they wanted to play too. It was great. He invited them inside and told them that he had made a lot of such games. They could play as much as they wanted. In the end, many liked them, so he decided to give them away. Then, they arranged their own small tournament. Everyone was having fun. This game caused a big boom in the city. A few weeks later, the protagonist noticed Wolf, who thoughtfully said to himself, "Something is already boring about this game." The protagonist thought that he was passing by at the right time. He decided to create a new game. He created chess. Wolf exclaimed in surprise, "What is this?" Sekai answered him that this is much more interesting than what they played before. Rind and Ridaf joined them, looking at the main character's new idea with interest. Rind exclaimed with admiration that Sekai was simply amazing. He was capable of everything. Ridaf was also delighted. It was also amazing for him. He said that they did not expect anything less from him. Then other townspeople came up to them, and everyone was completely delighted with the new game. Every now and then, epithets were heard from all sides, that it was great, cool, interesting, joyful, excellent, and gorgeous. The protagonist smiled happily and thought that people were much happier with chess. Just in time, because they had already become pretty bored with the previous game. After that, he decided not to stop. He created the games Shogi, Mahjong, Go, and many other smart entertainments. After a while, Makoro came to him. The protagonist showed him his first game, a board game. The merchant said that they had become very popular in other cities and capitals. Couldn't Mr. Sekai sell him a license to produce them? The protagonist didn't see a problem with that, and their deal was done. And so, with the help of Makoro, they began selling board games as well. Various board games became popular outside of their city. To show whose idea was being used, the protagonist asked the merchant to put his mark on each game. The mark contained a drawing of a world tree with a fruit. As a result, the ISEKAI'D brand board games became a success. The protagonist sold the license for a percentage of all sales. In addition, they became popular in the capital. Sekai board games, his name became a household word. As a result, all this reached the king. When he summoned Makoro, the king asked him if Sekai was the name of the board game manufacturer. The merchant replied that it was, but he was rather shy, so he did not show himself in public. He added that the protagonist had been busy lately, and it was impossible to contact him. In fact, the protagonist, for many reasons, was not going to contact the king, who obviously wanted to contact him through the merchant. The king thought about Makoro's answer. MC, after board games, decided to create a whole amusement park. He created a swing and many other things. By combining everything together, he managed to create a park. The goblin children accepted the park very well. The adults also wanted to play, but the swing was not for them. Sekai had to build something else. He created individual parts with his magical imagination, such as logs, rope, and many other necessary little things. Rein said that they would follow the protagonist's instructions. But looking at the materials, Rin doubted. He asked the protagonist, was he sure that it was worth just creating individual parts? MC replied that he was sure about it because it was much easier and saved time. That's how he managed to create a real obstacle course. It became equally popular among both adults and children. Goblins and werewolves easily passed all the obstacles, which was expected. Their physical abilities were noticeably higher than humans. In fact, for them, these were not even obstacles. Therefore, for them, the difficulty had to be increased, but they coped with this. Well, the protagonist had to come up with something even more difficult. Although, frankly speaking, his ideas were already coming to an end. After a while, the inhabitants began to organize competitions. Each race was excellent in its strength. Arachne has many legs, so she easily passed the athletics test, and right now she was in first place. This is how their city became more entertaining. After some time, a merchant with a young man came to the protagonist. The guy greeted the protagonist and introduced himself as Duane, the son of Makoro. They exchanged pleasantries. Over tea, the merchant told the protagonist that he was, after all, elderly, so he was thinking about retiring. From now on, his son Duane would work with them. Therefore, he brought him to meet him. The protagonist replied that he understood him. He added that they had been cooperating for a long time, so he would like to present the merchant with the fruit of his tree. The merchant was very grateful to the protagonist, but refused his gift. He explained that back then, long ago, his fruit saved his life. He survived only thanks to it. Now he was afraid that in his entire life, he had never been able to fully thank him. In addition, also thanks to him, the merchant met his love. The result of this love was Duane. Therefore, he would like to spend the rest of his life with his love, and he also wanted to spend his last seconds with her. Sekai respected his decision. The merchant thanked him warmly. The protagonist thought that, in the Japanese understanding, Makoro was still at an age where one can work. But in this world, life expectancy is shorter. Many people live in poverty, which is what made the merchant work so hard. So, it's nice to see him, a man who has achieved a lot thanks to his efforts. On the other hand, he wanted to protect him, so he continued to work as well. The merchant had been taking care of him all this time. It was obvious that he had done enough. If you think about it, when MC met the goblins, Makoro was young. Now they are much smarter and stronger than they were then. After all, so much time has passed. Goblins live longer than humans, so it's not surprising that the merchant has already decided to retire. The protagonist expressed hope to the merchant's son that they would work together. The boy replied that it was mutual. His father told him that Sekai helped him a lot. Therefore, he himself would repay him in kind. The protagonist objected to him. His father had already done enough. Duane answered him categorically that he and his father were forever indebted to him. Sekai asked him if he would tell him about the country he lived in. The boy readily agreed. He said that their country is located to the south of their city. It is called the Kingdom of Grinda. The ruler of their country is King Bamak. Grinda is a prosperous government. Many races live in it. The protagonist asked him if their city is also on the territory of the kingdom. Will it also become part of their country? What does he think about this? Duane answered him that, according to the law, this is so. The protagonist thought that through the Makoro company, they do quite a lot of business with the kingdom. Many tourists also come from Grinda. According to rumors, the merchant's company is closely connected with the royal family. After all, this company is #1 in the country. If Sekai was not mistaken, Makoro was even the mayor of Frankfurt. It is a prosperous city where trade is well developed. The protagonist would really like to visit there. Dwayne continued that his father told the king a lot about the protagonist. Bamuk is a good person. He expressed the hope that one day, their ruler will visit their city, and he will like it. The guy asked him if he knew what his city was called. Their city in their kingdom was called the settlement of Yggdrasil. By the way, their board games have become very famous. The protagonist answered that he knew it. It is not surprising that many locals call their city Yggdrasil themselves. MC thought about it. The settlement of Yggdrasil is not a bad name. Considering the increase in tourists, he will have to think about whether he can earn even more, although it seems like they already have enough money. As for money, they earn enough from working together with the Makoro Company. In order not to get confused, he decided to call them the Luck Company. With the increase in tourists, faith also grows. It accumulates well. The more tourists like their city, the stronger the faith. So, he should come up with something that would attract more tourists. He had a great idea. He asked the knight if there were casinos in other cities. The guy answered him that there were, and not only casinos but also other places of vice. All this is in most large cities. The protagonist thoughtfully said that he understood it. He thought that in order to gain more faith, he should open a casino. But on the other hand, this establishment would be worth building if this world initially did not have such a concept as a gambling house. So there was simply no point in it. But not all is lost for them yet. They just need to find out what kind of casinos they have in other cities. So he decided to ask what kind of casinos they have. The knight thought for a moment, then replied that they have roulette, poker. The protagonist was surprised. Poker? The guy answered that it was so. There is such a game. The protagonist thought about it. Since such games already exist, then it seems that card games in principle are well developed. Poker, and other types too, it turns out, right? Perhaps in the past, the goddess already sent someone to this same world. Maybe this someone brought these games here. Or is it just a coincidence that the same games originated? He thought it over carefully. He even imagined how and what could be done. But what next? If it was only this, then their casino would be little different from others. He had an idea. What if he created a modern casino? Pachinko and slot machines? But in this world, it would be difficult to reproduce something like that. There is no electricity or technology. He stopped himself in his utopian thoughts. What if he uses faith? Is it possible to create it? In any case, he should try to do it. The protagonist concentrated, used his magical imagination, but he was shaking very badly. He wondered what was happening. Then he noticed a weak aura from his hands and realized that this was a lot of faith being spent. In an instant, he became very weak. His strength began to leave him rapidly, and he screamed in pain. When his shaking stopped, he saw the device in front of him, which he projected. The protagonist was amazed. Did he succeed after all? The board on the slot machine lit up, inviting the player to battle. The protagonist thought in surprise, wow, there is no electricity, but everything works. How could this even be? He looked at his shaking hands and realized that he had spent a lot of faith. Even if he succeeds in creating modern machines, it takes a lot of effort. He spent almost all his faith to create this machine. The protagonist tried to create a pachinko, but he couldn't even do that. He thought that, given the effort spent, it would be impossible to mass-produce something like this. But he did understand something. With faith, he could even create a computer. At least that's what he thought. But he didn't think that he should bring the benefits of civilization here, and thereby destroy the normal growth rate of this world. But with electrical appliances, he could do much more. Of course, first of all, he needs to accumulate a lot of faith, so he will do it through the casino. MC delivered this machine to the city center. He explained to his allies the essence of his idea, and also told them the principle of operation of the device he created. Ella approached the device and said that she felt a huge magical power in this pachinko machine. Probably it works due to this very power. Rind noted that he understood the protagonist's message. He wanted to attract tourists with this machine. The protagonist confirmed his guess. He added that the more their client spent, the more he would receive. He turned to Ella, gave her the package, and asked her if she and other elves could wear this to work in the casino. She unwrapped the package and put on what was in it. Before the eyes of the protagonist and Rind, she appeared in the form of a rabbit. The protagonist was delighted with how the rabbit suit fit her. Rind was amazed. Do people work in a casino in such clothes? That's how the allies opened their casino. Visitors were lured to the establishment by elves dressed in rabbit suits. It soon became a very popular establishment. As he thought, tourists were happy to spend their money on games. The more money they spent, the higher his power of faith was. By the way, they discussed him because of the casino. After analyzing the tastes of the customers, the protagonist realized that the machine that attracted them the most was the pachinko machine. Everyone was glued to it, so he had to establish a rule. It was decided to move the money spent on pachinko to be visible to everyone. And so, everyone saw that their money was right under the machine. Every day, this pile of money grew. Consequently, people were drawn to the big win and began to spend even more. At first, customers were drawn to this pile and spent more and more money. The machines still did not show the precious win on its display. Almost no one won. And people quickly began to call the machine a swamp. But as soon as someone hit the jackpot, the customers immediately returned. As soon as they saw the money, everyone immediately ran to it, naturally, investing even more money. The machine worked around the clock, disturbing the peace of those who had common sense. Therefore, in order not to disturb the public peace, the protagonist had to take some measures. The city was manned by orc police. If something happened, the orcs would chase away the troublemakers. Thanks to the casino, the protagonist's faith grew very quickly. But this rate of faith accumulation was still not enough to create electrical appliances. Sakai wondered if there was anything he could do. Maybe it was too early for that? At this time, in the capital, Mokoro arrived to see the king. Bamuk looked unwell. He was coughing very badly and looked pale. The merchant asked him if he was okay. Handing the vessel to the king, the merchant said that he had brought him something. His Highness asked him what it was. Mokoro replied that it was wine from the world tree. After some time, the merchant came to see the protagonist. Sekai was surprised. Was it him? What brought him here? Is he in good health? He hugged Mokoro and noted that they had not seen each other for so long. He asked him what business he came to him for. The merchant answered MC that he had one request for him. Could he come to the kingdom of Grinda? The protagonist was very surprised. Why was this necessary? The man answered him that the king would like to meet him and personally thank him